The United States stands as the world's largest producer, consumer, and exporter of corn. Yet today, American farmers are facing one of the toughest crises in decades. Across the heartland, concern is turning into despair. Corn prices have fallen below the break-even point for most growers, while input costs continue to skyrocket.
I never imagined losing this much money this quickly.
Generations of families who built their lives on this land are watching their livelihoods vanish. Meanwhile, north of the border, Canada is seizing the opportunity, securing trade deals with Japan, South Korea, and Europe, and taking over the global market that America once dominated. While U.S. grain rots in silos, Canadian exports are sailing off to eager buyers. How did everything change so suddenly? Who triggered this global realignment, and what lies ahead for U.S. agriculture? Let's find out. The trouble began when tariffs began suffocating the value of American corn before it even reached international markets. Heavy fees on Chinese-built cargo ships imposed by Washington sent shockwaves through the farming economy. Shipping costs through the Gulf of Mexico jumped nearly 25%, adding hundreds of millions to export expenses. Across the Pacific, container prices doubled to over $5,000 each, turning a fragile recovery into a nightmare. But tariffs were just the beginning. In March 2025, the Federal Grain Inspection Service introduced stricter pesticide residue standards, raising testing fees by 40% and forcing exporters to pass new chemical compliance checks. Any shipment that failed mid-transit risked rejection and costly returns. Meanwhile, barge traffic along the Mississippi River plunged far below average. New Orleans became a floating warehouse, 180 vessels stuck, waiting for paperwork and inspections. Corn spoiled in the open air as every week of delay slashed about 27 cents off each bushel's value. In Iowa and Indiana, losses piled up faster than farmers could recover. And as the chaos spread, global buyers began changing their expectations. Quantity was no longer enough. They demanded clean, traceable, sustainable grain. Then came another major blow. In February, Mexico, one of America's biggest buyers, banned genetically modified corn. Feed mills worldwide followed with similar restrictions. This blindsided U.S. producers, since more than 90% of the country's corn is GMO. Practically overnight, American grain was removed from the preferred supplier list. Canada, however, was ready. Its Prairie Trace blockchain system could track every kernel from seed to shipment, guaranteeing sustainability and low-carbon output. Within weeks, Canadian exporters signed billion-dollar deals with Japan, South Korea, and the European Union. The result was devastating for U.S. farmers. Midwest spot corn prices collapsed to $3.45 per bushel, the lowest in nearly 10 years. While Manitoba corn fetched $4.20 thanks to its traceable certification, buyers were willing to pay more for assurance and accountability. Contracts with American co-ops were canceled, barges sat anchored, and silos overflowed. America's once unshakable hold on global grain trade began to crumble. By late 2025, U.S. corn stocks swelled to a 6-year high. The USDA projected over 2.5 billion bushels, around 68 million tons, sitting unsold. In Cedar Rapids, corn traded at just $3.74 per bushel, well below the break-even cost. With input costs exceeding $160 per acre, many growers stopped harvesting altogether. Some sold their equipment. Others took night jobs just to pay their mortgages. Indiana's rural economy shrank by over 6% in the first quarter of 2025. Food banks across the Midwest were overwhelmed, with families who once fed the nation now relying on donated meals. The Food Bank of Indiana warned that 130 million meals were at risk as surplus programs and government aid dwindled. Even logistics turned against farmers. Low water levels in the Mississippi River, now almost a yearly event, forced lighter barge loads and shorter tows for the third consecutive year, adding $20 per ton to shipping costs. Barges waited weeks for clearance, paralyzing the supply chain. With silos full and markets closed, American corn had nowhere left to go. The silent fields of the Midwest tell the story. A nation that once fed the world now struggling to feed its own.